We know that you have approximately 17,000 National Apprenticeship Week events to choose from this week. I've already been to several, both virtual and in person. And so we appreciate that you choose to spend this hour with us. We know that Registered Apprenticeship is an employer-driven program that we will explain a little bit more in a moment. And today we want to celebrate the people who choose to learn and earn in these programs, the apprentices. And please, as I mentioned, if you'd like to introduce yourself in the chat, do so and include your name, your organization, your location. It's always fun to see where everyone is from. And then one last logistical thing. This is a short slide deck, but you will get a copy of it in the follow-up email from the Learning Lab. So, so don't worry about taking notes. So I'm Marjorie, Midwest Urban Strategies. I sit in DC where it is raining, and I have been working in and around registered apprenticeship since 2015. I've been to a lot of registered apprenticeship and National Apprenticeship Week events, and hands down, I think the most interesting and worthwhile events are those that center the apprentice voice. So let's get ready to ask an apprentice. All right. Just a quick agenda to give you a little bit of a preview of our time together today. I'll tell you a little bit about who Midwest Urban Strategies is and what we do. And for those who aren't particularly familiar with registered apprenticeship or need a refresher, I'll provide a brief overview. And then comes the best part, which is the bulk of what we're going to do. I'll introduce our apprentice panelists, and we'll get into a discussion about their experiences and what they think of apprenticeship. And finally, I'll turn to you for your questions for our panelists. So while we have a dedicated time at the end for audience Q&A, please feel free to put any questions that you may have in the chat along the way, particularly if you have like a clarifying question or a little question that you want answered right then. Go ahead and mark your question, just say like urgent, I or other MUS staff will make sure that I answer it as it comes up. And questions with the panelists can be asked in the chat at any time, and I'll go through them and others during Q&A. All right. All right, so before I begin with the apprentice part, I want to tell you a little bit about Midwest Urban Strategies. Yeah, I'm sorry, my slides are very slow today. So Midwest Urban Strategies is a leading workforce intermediary that convenes urban workforce development boards to drive economic opportunity and social mobility. MUS collaborates with a variety of public workforce system stakeholders, including workforce development boards, government agencies, employers, community organizations, to develop innovative workforce solutions that address labor market needs while supporting underserved populations. Through this work, MUS helps connect federal workforce priorities with local implementation and support strategies that expand access to employment and career pathways for workers across the country. The big thing to really know is that we are all about connecting to workforce development stakeholders across the board, across the country, and really think about innovative strategies to help us tackle some of our most interesting work. And so one last thing about this slide. I was on this site visit where you see all the happy faces, and it was to the St. Louis area YWCA in October. And you probably can't tell, but I want to just point out that if you look really closely on the right side, you can see a black and white checkered arm and shoulder, and that's me. So I just wanted to point that out and tell you, and I want everybody to notice how adorable the black and white checkered shirt is. So with that, I will keep going. So by a show of hands, if you could use like the hand raise function on Teams, who could use sort of a primer or a refresher on registered apprenticeship? Anybody feeling the need to learn just a little bit more about registered apprenticeship before we get going? All right, Brant, Ashley, Jeremy, Kimberly, excellent. Excellent. That's great. So you go ahead and put your head down, your hand. It is one of those days. Okay. So that's great. I will do a quick, brief overview. So when we say registered apprenticeship, what is it that we're actually talking about? So as you can see, the official definition is that registered apprenticeship is an industry-driven, high-quality career pathway where employers can develop and prepare their workforce, and individuals can obtain paid work experience, classroom instruction, and a portable, nationally recognized credential. It's a lot, and that's sort of the very official definition. But let's see if we can't break that down a little bit into what it might mean in real life. So when you hear the term registered apprenticeship, you may think about a 4 or 5 year long training program for plumbers or electricians or construction workers. And while that's true, it's also true that especially since 2015, registered apprenticeship has been used as a learn and earn training program for a lot of industries and occupations. There are RAs, registered apprenticeships, in IT and cybersecurity, healthcare, like for a certified nurse's assistants or ultrasound technician, advanced manufacturing, which we'll hear about shortly, and even education, like for a teacher in a K-12 classroom or an early educator in a childcare center, which we'll also be hearing about shortly. I've even seen registered apprenticeship programs in graphic design, which I would totally do. So what makes a program registered apprenticeship? So registered apprenticeship is a structured Department of Labor approved training model. So what does that mean? So first of all, it's industry led. Programs are industry vetted and approved to ensure alignment with industry standards that apprentices are trained for highly skilled and high demand occupations, much like the, Ashley, did you have a question? You have raised your hand. Do you want to come off mute and ask a question? No? Okay, that's fair too. Um, much like advanced manufacturing and early childhood, which we will talk about in a moment, those are both highly skilled, highly demand industries and occupations. So a registered apprenticeship is also a job. It's a paid job. Apprentices earn progressive wage as their skills and their productivity increase. It's got structured on-the-job learning. Essentially, registered apprenticeship programs provide structured on-the-job training to prepare for a successful career, which includes instruction from an experienced mentor or journey worker. There's also an educational component. There is coursework that apprentices are provided as supplemental classroom education based on the employer's unique training needs to ensure quality and success. And finally, there are credentials. Apprentices earn a portable, nationally recognized credential within their industry that employers across the country recognize and understand that means that the person who has it is qualified for the job. Okay, so that's registered apprenticeship. Before I move forward and get to the part we all want to see, does anybody have any questions about registered apprenticeship? No. Okay, fair enough. And if you do, please just put something in the chat, raise your hand, do whatever you need. We, as I said, are missing one of our apprentices. So this is not going to be the world's most accurate slide. However, oh, yep, Morgan, due to her, she has been pulled into classroom duties later than usual and unfortunately is not able to join as she hoped. Okay. Emily, I would love for you to pinch hit if you wouldn't mind.
Happy to do so, Marjorie.
Thank you. It is all about just doing what needs to be done. So I totally get it. As you all probably know, early childhood education is not particularly well staffed right now. They could use a lot more high quality and well trained staff. So Morgan is living that life. Um, as you can see, Morgan, who would have been here, is a lead teacher at Skip Along in the infant room, and she lives in Andalusia, Illinois. And stepping in for her is Emily Demitz. Demitz, I can never do that right. She is actually at the University of Illinois, Chicago, who is helping to sponsor the program that Morgan was part of. Next is Mandy Joy, who is here. Mandy, please wave your hand. Thank you. She's a program manager on the ECE Career Advancement Team at Vermont Association for the Education of Young Children. She is part of the Vermont Early Childhood Leadership Institute and the class of 2026. Her team at Vermont AEYC oversees Vermont's Early Childhood Registered Apprenticeship Program, which is great. And she began her career in ECE through registered apprenticeship. Finally, we have Cody Gibson. Cody, would you raise your hand, wave your hand, do whatever? There you go. He is a current apprentice at Rebuild Manufacturing CDI, and he is a CNC operator and programmer based in Ohio. So let's get started. So this is the panel discussion. And frankly, you don't need to see the slide. I think that it'll be much more interesting if I stop sharing and you can see the folks who are speaking. If somebody, I probably should have said this earlier, if Jeremy or Kelly, if you can pin the three of us, the four of us to the screen, that would be great. All right, there's Mandy. So why don't we start with Mandy? I have a bunch of questions, but I would love to hear other questions as we go along. So let's start. There we are. Hi, Cody. And then Emily would be our third person. So let's start with Mandy. How did you hear about the apprenticeship you did? And why did you decide to become an apprentice?
Yeah, great. So I'm going to switch around on you, Marjorie, and I'm probably going to start with why did I decide to become an apprentice, because that will lead quickly into like how did I then hear about it. And so at the time, I actually wasn't intending to fall into early childhood education as a long-term career goal when I entered into it. And I entered into early childhood education right while I was still in high school. At the time, the hours were very attractive to me. I loved to play with children, but I was really kind of considering like what do I want to do, and I wasn't quite sure where that would land. I through like my primary education, traditional schooling was a little bit challenging for me, and so I really didn't see myself continuing through to higher education at that point in time, and was really seeking opportunities to engage in credentialing or professional development supports that were available to me that were an alternative to like a more traditional college route. So that leads me to then like, how did I hear about it? It was through my employer. She really felt at the time that I had a knack for working with young children. Like it was really joyful. I was really enjoying the experience. At that time, apprenticeship was very new in the state of Vermont. So I should intro to say that I'm completed apprenticeship some time ago. It was in 2008 that I actually completed. So I was one of the first crew to complete in the state of Vermont, which was great. But this was this new opportunity that she had discovered and thought that I might be a good fit for. And I was. And so I was able to engage in it in that way to kind of continue through apprenticeship and through that experience and really learning all of the like seeing behind the curtain in child development for the first time and being supported through coursework in a different way was really helpful for me in identifying that early childhood education was a career path that spoke to my heart and that I wanted to dedicate myself to, and also kind of seeing myself being able to continue through other opportunities for my own education and development.
That's great. And I want to come back to the part where you talked about how you weren't you didn't feel it in education, in your education career. I want to come back to that, but I want to go to Cody, and I want to ask Cody a very similar question. So, how did you hear about it? Why did you decide to become an apprentice?
That was curiosity, actually. We got bought out by Rebuild Manufacturing, and the current owners and staff, they're high in the further education and stuff like that. So I just went in there all curious, and then all of a sudden I'm signed up and going through it. So it's an ongoing. Yeah, that's how I heard about it. It's like they say curiosity killed the cat. It's kind of a struggle, actually, because I work 60 to 70 hours a week, and I got a wife and kids, and and commend you for childhood. I got two daughters, and they drive me crazy. So I don't think you guys get paid enough. So it's so it 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 is cool. Yeah, I could go rambling on. So it's that's
That's
how I
great.
got into it.
That's great. That's great. I think curiosity is one of the best ways to end up on a career path. Um, and then Emily, I'm just going to throw to you a similar question. Basically, why did you decide to be part of a registered apprenticeship? How did you decide to sponsor a registered apprenticeship program in Illinois?
Yeah, great question. So I'll start with like my personal, like why I came to this work. So before I joined the UIC team, and like Marjorie mentioned, we're the intermediary for our statewide early childhood apprenticeship program. I'd spent quite a bit of time working in early childhood classrooms myself back when I was an undergraduate student and then immediately before coming to UIC. And I found that it was some of the most intellectually and emotionally rewarding work that I'd ever done. And at the same time, it's really sometimes very challenging to find early childhood sites that are really supportive of ongoing learning and professional development, where there's a culture of, exchanging practices and working together. So I've seen sites where that's worked really well. And so when I found out about the work that UIC was doing to bring on not only individual apprentices to the program, but also engage employer partners and colleges and universities in this work to make it not only more affordable for folks to go back to school and pursue credentials and degrees in early childhood, but also to create sort of like a wraparound system of support so that apprentices were getting support from a mentor who worked on their site, who already had a really trusting relationship with them, getting information about scholarships and professional opportunities from our team. That was really meaningful. It's something that I definitely wish I'd had when I was working in classrooms myself. So that was sort of the impetus for me coming to this work. And now I support, we have, I think, 67 registered apprentices as part of our program now. So I do my one-on-one quarterly check-ins with each of them. I just wrapped up a bunch this week. So I'm bummed that Morgan isn't here because she is one of our awesome apprentices who's brought on a lot of other folks into the program, but I'll do my best to synthesize their perspectives and share here too.
Thank you, Emily. So that's sort of a get started. I have a bunch of questions, but I would also really love for this to turn into a discussion among the three of you and with me, seeding some questions because I think that you have some experiences in common. I think that apprenticeship is something that from every sort of occupation or industry, the perspective is really um, is that this is a really helpful way to start your career or upskill your career, however. But I do think that y'all have different industries, and I think there's a wide difference between early childhood and advanced manufacturing. And so I definitely want to hear about all of that. Um, but I want to go back for a moment, Mandy, to what you said about not necessarily jiving with education, and I'd love to ask how the apprenticeship sort of helped you maybe have a new experience with your own education.
Yeah, definitely. And so, as I mentioned in my intro, like primary education, high school, that was a little bit more challenging for me. I was certainly in a family that had a little bit of instability, so we moved around a lot, and that creates a lot of challenge in education in general. I was having a really difficult time, like I said, at the end of my high school career, really seeing myself continuing with education at that point. I was really leading from that perspective of how challenging it was. And I would say that apprenticeship really opened up my mindset on that experience a little bit more. I was really excited by the opportunity to engage with a program that not only supported me and provided me mentorship support as I worked through courses. It felt like there was a little bit of a helping hand there as I reacclimated to that level of coursework, but also the opportunity to really use those credit hours, like the work hours, in order to show that I was not just learning through like testing, through assignments, but through my actions in the classroom. And that's the part that I really engaged with strongly, was the work with my mentor, the observations that were done, their feedback, and really helping to take that education that I was really receiving in the classroom and bring it into practice. And really it changed my perspective at that time on education as a whole, because I can say from that point, and I'm skipping ahead a little bit, I was able to continue on, and I achieved my undergrad degree. I achieved teaching licensure. I've completed grad school since then. And so apprenticeship was really the starting point for me in rebuilding a relationship with my own education and professional development, and by meeting me where I was at, and by providing a great level of support, great sponsorship, to kind of set me right on the next best path for myself.
Love that, and I love hearing that. Cody, what was your sort of experience in your own education, and how did that either translate or not to the work that you're doing in your apprenticeship?
So my experience is actually the gap in schooling. Like you got an age range from kids, 18 years old. We got apprentices all the way up into their 60s. So it's a big deal. Like you go there, and then everyone like everyone has like their generational niches too. And I I've learned a lot. It's crazy. Like I'm awesome on like a CNC machine, right? But you ask me to try to do an Excel spreadsheet, and it's like it's crazy. And then you got uh, this up and coming generation. They're so tech savvy. And actually, part of my apprenticeship is I go there and try to scout some of these younger people to come into our field, because this is my feeling in manufacturing. I feel like we're it's kind of dying off as far as having younger folks come into it. Because at my shop, and I'm knocking, I should say this, I'm 40, and I'm the youngest guy in my shop. So it's I try to encourage, I go there and I'm learning and doing stuff, but I'm also watching some of these younger folks, and I'm trying to snag them and get them interested into manufacturing. So I don't know if I'm answering this. I'm going off on a thing here. So and I'm so used to it, my ears are ringing. So I'm in machining. So right now it's hard for me to concentrate because it's just ringing. So I just lost my screen. I'm in somebody else's office. So yeah. So I'm sorry.
No, that's great. That's great.
Yeah. So I don't know if
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk a little bit more about sort of your journey in advanced manufacturing. I know when we had talked, you were talking about how you'd started when you were what, like 14 or something crazy like that, and then
yeah.
you're nearing 40 and you're still doing it. And so I'd love to sort of hear a little bit about your journey.
So it was funny because I went to a trade school halfway through high school, and it 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 was awesome because I had a friend that was older than me that was in trade school, and he started talking to me about it, and he was big into racing and drag racing, and I was like, this is cool, and he's like, just go to an open house, right? And I went to an open house, and it was just neat because everything, if you think about it, that touch and do. It's manufactured in some way, shape, or form. And it's just, I think it's very neat, and I'm a very hands-on person, so I could take and make a model or a print and then go out and make it. It's just very fascinating. I love this trade, and I just wish a lot of folks, you try to share like your passion with something, and it's just like, wow, come look at this. I think it would be neat, but it's yeah, I try like my apprentice. This is great through like my apprenticeship. I've learned what's funny because I've been in it so long, and it's hilarious. You think you know something, and then you go there, and it's like, wow, I didn't think of it that way, or and through your instructors and other people that are apprentices in different areas, and it's kind of neat, like the different collaborations and stuff like that. I think it's awesome, and I'm really happy as far as like our company offering this, and it's attractive to try to get young folks into an apprenticeship, especially in manufacturing, because it's like we need people, we need good skilled people in this business. So I think it's very important to do, and it kind of stinks because I wish, or you regret, you do it a little earlier in life. But I mean, when it came along, and it's like you're juggling a family and you're working, and like as I'm in here, I got to knock on the door like 5 or 6 times, so you're being pulled every which way, and it's kind of like I wish you could go back in time a little bit and do this when you're fresh out of high school, or yeah. It's so that's kind of a little bit what I have going on. So, and I'm a little wired on caffeine too. So, yep. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Yes.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah.
I think you've hit on something really important, which is that the generation that has been doing this for so long is beginning to retire. And the replacement piece is really, really important, right? So I think that you're really seeing this as an opportunity to bring some of the young folks in, which I love. Um, I used to be a young folk. I am not anymore. Emily, what are you hearing from the apprentices that you're working with about why they chose to, or how they got to early childhood or anything like that? If you've been having those conversations, what are you hearing from them?
Yeah, I think for a lot of folks, the prospect of being able to learn while you earn is really compelling. We have some folks in our apprenticeship program for whom higher ed is a brand new thing. And so, Cody, what you said about like, oh, you wish you started a little bit earlier,
Mhm.
I've heard that from some of our folks too, who have, been in the field for decades and decades and now are investing in themselves and going back to school and thinking like, man, I never thought of myself as a school person, but now that I'm in a program that feels really supportive and responsive to the needs of people who are working full time and going to school, it just feels totally different. So they're really proud. They're making the dean's list, feeling like it's really easy to bridge what they're learning in their college coursework to what they're doing on the job, thanks to the reflective coaching they get from their mentors. But I think one of the exciting things about our program is that we've been able to figure out a wage scale with each of our employer partners so that as folks are going back to school to get their next state recognized credential or next degree in early childhood, they're seeing a commensurate bump in their pay as well. And I know that that's not the case across all early childhood sites nationally, so it's kind of a special opportunity for folks to see that when they invest in their education and the use of high quality practices in the classroom, they're seeing that investment honored in how much they make as well. So far the feedback has been pretty positive. We've had a lot of folks who started out getting their early childhood credential level 2, which in our state corresponds to some coursework but no degree in early childhood, and then realizing like they're getting the hang of this, and then they come back and get their associate's degree in early childhood. So the pie slice of folks who are getting their bachelor's or associates has increased dramatically because we have so many people returning. So that's been super exciting. And I think for a lot of folks, it's exciting to have other staff members and co-teachers in the classroom. Mandy, I don't know if this is your experience as well, but we have a couple folks who are working in classrooms where their co-teachers are also apprentices in the program. So they get a lot of support, not only from their mentor, but also from their peer teachers about like, how is college coursework going? Have you guys taken this class before? If so, can you give me some guidance? Things like that that I think have been really helpful. So yeah, hopefully that answers the question, but I'm really excited to share more of what I'm hearing because it seems like people are having a really good experience across the board.
That's great. That's great. And you know, I'm just going to throw these out to anybody who feels like answering. What has been sort of what's the best part of an apprenticeship for you, or the apprenticeship you've been through? And what's been the hardest? Like, what have you found particularly challenging? You know, Cody, you mentioned something about, you know, family, and juggling them with this. And I'm just wondering if has that been really hard? How have you figured out how to do that?
When I first started, my wife was pregnant, and I had to, of course, take night class, and we we are we're very busy all the time. I'm thankful for that, but it's too busy, right? So I'm working all these hours and then having to go to school, and of course you got an angry mama soon to be at home, and it's very difficult to it's different. You feel bad because you're not there, but I'm trying to better ourselves for our family, right? So she understands, but you feel bad for that. Um, that's kind of a thing, like the work life, home life, and school. It's hard to balance all that stuff. So, I mean, I think I'm doing okay now. She might argue with me if she was here, but yeah. So, yeah.
No, that's great. Is that well, I mean, it's not great that that was hard. Um, or that your wife might argue with you. Um, but Mandy, is that something that rings true to you as well? The juggling family and school and work.
Yeah, certainly. So one of the things that also occurred for me is that within my apprenticeship, I also became a parent. And so it's challenging to parent and engage in anything like at the same time is certainly a challenge. I was really well supported, and I was really grateful for the opportunity to have the level of structure that apprenticeship did provide me through that. To keep me going, I really wonder if I didn't have such a strong support system through apprenticeship, where that would have landed for me, or if I would have picked it back up. But I really had some cheerleaders that were already built into the process, and so that was really helpful. I would say from my perspective, one of the more challenging things was because it was some time ago and apprenticeship was relatively new. It was still a piloted and developing program. So it's very different than it looks like now in my state. Going through early iterations of the apprenticeship, you also go through some of those learning experiences and kind of figuring out its place in the career development pathway. And that at times had its bumping points, but certainly people were working on that. And there's been a lot of good progress since then in aligning it with overall career planning, which is great. And I would say that some of the best things about being an apprentice, well, one of my favorite things about my apprenticeship experience was the relationships that I was really able to build in through it. And so I had great working relationships with my sponsor and my mentor. I actually still have contact with them and some individuals in my cohort. And like I said, I completed in 2008. So like it's been an expansive amount of time, and we're still able to make good connections together and kind of see how we've moved through our career paths. Another individual on my team at Vermont AUIC who also supports youth apprenticeship and apprenticeship programs was an apprentice as well. And so in my cohort, so we've been able to reconnect later in life and share this like really great experience together on a program that's very close to our hearts. But being able to have that contact is great. And the ability, even though it was challenging, to earn and learn through my parenting and my apprenticeship was huge because, not working at that time was not a possibility for me. And so having an educational option that allowed for both and really honored, again, the hours that I was putting in at work was huge. It was a huge motivator, and it really helped to keep me moving along.
pick up on something, Mandy. It has been a while since you were an apprentice, and you were part of the guinea pigs for some in a lot of ways, right, with registered apprenticeship. But now, as you sit in Vermont AEYC, um, how do you see things changing? Has your experience as having been an apprentice, sort of helped you think through what your role is and what things should look like?
It certainly helps. It certainly helps. At Vermont AUIC, one of our core goals, one of our missions and values is really staying in touch and elevating the voices of the field as it sits now. So I want to be really mindful that I'm not presently in the ECE field. And so their current experience and the landscape of ECE is also very different from when I sat in it. And so truly it's their voice that matters the most, and really receiving and hearing that. But what I would say is that being able to engage in apprenticeship, having such a strong appreciation for the program, and really understanding how it supported me as a participant keeps my focus in line with making sure that other apprentices who are going through it now are having a really good and positive experience, and really taking the lessons that were learned through the early iterations and kind of walking through my career path and how that impacted my career path is something I always keep in mind when I am working with any recipient of any of our programs, and really thinking about how do we work with our community partners, which are so great, to continue to create a smooth pathway for individuals who are wanting to move forward and help them to bridge that gap in a similar way that I did.
That's great. That's great. There is a question in the chat from Kelly about mentorship or inspiration, and whether you can talk a little bit. Let's start with you, Cody, about the kind of support that you've received from your journey worker, your mentor, and how that's sort of made a difference for you.
Oh, it was huge. There's been several times like you get frustrated and you want to quit. My wife is obviously one of them that drives me. I mean, I drive her crazy and stuff. But what's funny is my wife's in her early childhood. Went to school and stuff for all that jazz. So, um, they are underpaid. It's a struggle, but she's helped me and supported me. Like when I had to do like Microsoft Excel, right? Learning all that jazz. I'm sitting there and she's huge. I would say on in my shop would be my head foreman. These guys, and I got many. If they were to hear, they'd kick my butt. But like older gentlemen that's been in the industry for 30, 40 years, and they got it's that secret sauce to everything to make things work, and then they know what to say, to motivate you to do better and try harder. So I got a lot of support from a lot of places. So because there's a lot of times you're like, man, want to put your hands up and say, the heck with this jazz. So, but you keep going at it. So, and so far so good. So I'm getting near the end here. So I just got to keep rolling. So yeah.
That's helpful. Yeah. I mean, I think having those people in your workplace, whether it's, a formal mentor or, just somebody who is working alongside you, to really help you understand what the work is and how to get better at it. I think that's really great. Um, we have another question. What is one thing you wish somebody had told you prior to entering the apprenticeship that you wish you would have known before that might have eased some of the challenges or helped you?
I can jump in on that if that's helpful, Marjorie.
Please.
So one thing that I reflect on this often, from the position that I'm in, and where I could have had some gaps and barriers of help support, and something that I didn't understand at the time very well, particularly coming from my experience in primary education before apprenticeship, was the pathway. Like I didn't understand where anything kind of fit together. I was piecing everything together independently. I was doing apprenticeship, and at the same time I was doing another credentialing program, not really quite sure And it ended up that those two programs were parallel programs. And so, one would have been sufficient. And so the learning really was, and what could have been helpful at the time for me was really somebody who would have sat down with me and been able to walk through all of the opportunities and identify, where they landed in the pathway and help me to build that plan. At the time, I didn't have anybody that I recognized that I could reach out to do that. I know there were some people working in the field who were able to do that. It was still a newer program, and so I'm not sure that anybody was well equipped at that time. And if they were, then we missed each other, unfortunately. And so it's just something that I think about. It's something I think about in my position now. It's something that I think has changed since I've been in apprenticeship by and large in Vermont, and so that's great. But certainly something to be mindful of is really trying to help apprentices understand, where they are currently, what their ultimate goals are, and pathways to get to that that are very clear and that they can understand.
Great. Yeah, I mean, I think that's really important hindsight, particularly as a guinea pig. Cody, you had mentioned that you would have loved to, if you didn't want the gap, you should have gotten into this earlier. When you finally did get into it, did you, I mean, like Mandy mentioned, like a pretty clear career pathway. Was that something that you got? Is that something that sort of got you into what you're doing? And I guess one more question would be, what would have brought you in earlier?
So I started back, it was recession time, and I worked for a lot smaller company at the time. And we were here, like we talked about like apprenticeship, but they said, it's one of those things you're going to learn everything you need to know, of course, here, right? And I mean, I've learned exponentially, and there's always learning, you're always learning every day. And one of the things that somebody asked, things if I would have known beforehand, because I've been doing it for quite a while, and it's like keep your mouth shut and your ears open, right? So a lot of times when you're actually listening to an instructor or listening to somebody, just sit there and not be judgmental, but actually listen to what they're actually saying and try and have to offer. And I'm somebody, and I just say it's like I'm certain everybody's heard that there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? So that's there's more than one way to do a job. So it's just sitting there and learning, and keeping your ears open. And yeah, I'm there. I go just rambling again. So I don't know if I answered all the questions.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's helpful. And another question came up for you um, about, would you have been able to do the things that you've done if you did it on your own versus through this apprenticeship? Did the apprenticeship actually help you with some of your work-life balance, or get you in the career pathway that you wanted? Or do you think you could have done it on your own?
It, huh. So what's funny, it's like I think it keeps you, because you can procrastinate a lot of times when you do stuff on your own, right? So this right now gives you a structure and organization and keeps you moving along. So that's what's really great with the apprenticeship, because I do like you got a set schedule. This is your task to accomplish. Go get it done, right? So if on your own, it's one of those things. You start something like I don't know, and you got house projects. You start something and you don't finish it, right? So right now it's like I got good people. They're right there. Like when you start slacking off, they're not afraid to let you know it. So yeah.
Yeah, so the structure has really sort of has given you that motivation, right? To
Oh yeah.
to keep going, to meet deadlines and things like that, and actually keep your career pathway going. That is something that we've definitely heard. So that's helpful. Emily, is that sort of in line with what you're hearing from your apprentices?
Yeah, definitely. I would say that one thing that has helped tremendously is that because we're partnering so closely with our employer partners and our higher ed partners, when situations come up, like relating to financial aid or scholarship disbursement, It's no longer that an apprentice on top of their busy like full-time work schedule has to go out of their way to find out like who can I talk to in financial aid? This is an academic advising question or a financial aid advising question, or should I be talking to someone different? We kind of can help serve as a triage so that they know they can come to us, and we're not quite a one-stop shop in that we won't know the answer to every financial aid question, but we know people at each of our institutions who do. So I think that sort of like streamlined having support all in one place so that folks don't have to like start from scratch every time they need help with something has been really useful.
That's great. That's great. Mandy, is that something that either you experienced or that you're hoping that folks are experiencing now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's key. I think it's important. It's something that I'm very mindful of in my work today is being aware of the workload of, any continuing education while you are working full time, right? Or while you're working at all. And so I think it's so key to have somebody who you can reach out to quickly, who can help to find the answer along with you. Particularly, in the field of early childhood education, a lot of the supports are still fragmented in a lot of ways. And so it's not always very clear who is holding on to what role, particularly for people who are newer to the field, particularly for people who are still trying to learn about the field in general. And so very key to continue that work.
That's great. That's great. Cody, what are your plans after you finish this apprenticeship? Is there another one in your future? Is there what does finishing your apprenticeship look like?
Finishing my apprenticeship, obviously, I'm going after a journeyman's card, but I'm also going to get, there's several different degrees, that I can, a few more courses, and then you can obtain, several types of degrees. So I'm going to go forth and probably explore those avenues and, get my degrees. As long as there's not heavy Excel, no, but, it is, it's really neat, and what's bad is there's things where I thought I couldn't do, and I do it, and it's really kind of neat, like it's intimidating, at first when you go into something new and you're like, what do I do? And you got people, and I'm wrangled in with all walks of life from all kinds of different fields when I go to my classes, and it is crazy, like you can see, technologically, like the younger generation is really on top of things. But then it's like also when you got to get up to actually speak and actually, exert yourself. That's what's kind of neat with apprenticeship is like the leadership type stuff, right? Where you got to get up and communicate with people. And what's kind of funny, they make fun of me. I don't have a problem with that, but you get into some of the younger folks, it's like, I'll text you and I'm like, I'm standing here, right? Let's have a conversation, right? So I think people need like conversation and stuff like that, and leadership skills. So I do. I enjoy talking to people because that's how I learn actually a lot. Is through talk, and learning about things. So sometimes I'll ask a little too much questions. So yeah. I'm sorry, here I go
There's
again.
such a thing as too many questions.
Oh.
I mean, for me, totally, but for other people asking me, never too many. But and so you mentioned you're going to be obviously getting your journeyman card.
Hmm.
And are you thinking of becoming a mentor for other apprentices once you're a journey worker?
Oh, absolutely. So, like my current position where I'm at, I'm a foreman out on the shop floor. So I have my team of guys and gals that I work with every day, and some of them are younger, and I'm encouraging. They'll ask me, "You're in school?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm in school. You should, I'll be like, school's cool. Don't be a fool." I try saying stuff to encourage them because I want these younger folks to actually, they to better themselves and to, and it's exciting to get into this field, I think, So I'm sorry to be, I get upset when somebody, like this job's too hard or whatnot like that. And it's, I want to have established, make sure work ethic, you need to have a good work ethic, good attitude, positivity, try to drive that home. And I mean, this has helped out a lot, whenever, with the apprenticeship program where you guys, do a group project. How do you deal with somebody in a group that's not pulling their weight? That happens quite a bit. How many, you guys, you'll be in a group project and it's like there's four of you and one of them's an absolute, you really don't want them in your group. So how do you deal with that? And through this apprenticeship, this has actually helped you kind of deal with some, because you're put into these groups and they actually kind of show you how, like, how do you deal with these individuals, right? And that can be very challenging. So I don't know if you guys have experienced that or had to go through that working in the group settings and you feel like somebody's not pulling their weight. It can be very frustrating. And I mean, there's ways to motivate those people, but it's very difficult. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, as Emily says in the chat, it sounds like you're helping to shape a more positive culture at work, not only encouraging folks to get into apprenticeship, but also sort of building the culture of learning in general. And I think that is so important and such a great role for you.
Thank you. I hope so. Yes.
Mandy, I do want to ask, so you're more than a few years out from your apprenticeship. But that career pathway that you've drawn for yourself, did the registered apprenticeship sort of help you see what else was out there, or was that sort of a stepping stone, but maybe you found your career pathway a little later? Like how did the registered apprenticeship really sort of either put you on the path or at least give you a couple paths to go on?
Yeah. As I mentioned, early childhood education wasn't something I had saw myself in long term before the register. It was meant to be a very short term experience from my perspective at that time. But through apprenticeship, it really ignited like this joy in my heart for the work that is done supporting children and families. And it really created this value for me that I've held on to for the entirety of my career, which is that whatever I do and whatever position I land in, I want it to be for the better of children and families. And so apprenticeship was it was a springboard for that. It allowed me to continue, like I said, through my education all the way through graduate school. I've had the opportunity to provide coaching and mentoring to other apprentices. I owned a program for a while that did sponsorship. I was able to spend some time doing family support and coaching through Child Protective Services. Like I've just had, as I look back now, such an interesting opportunity to have a robust career that like I've been able to engage with many interests in. And when I think about it, it's every step of the way. Like it's one step at a time, every step of the way, sticking with that core value and interest of children and families in my area. But truly, like the first step of that was apprenticeship. And so really forever grateful for the opportunity to start out in that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think I love the fact that you've basically been part of an apprenticeship at every potential level, right? You were an apprentice, you were a mentor, you owned a program, you were a sponsor. I think that's amazing. That sort of speaks volumes about the place that the registered apprenticeship sort of holds in your career. So I think that's an amazing testament to it. We have 3 minutes left. I hope, by the way, I hope everybody I hope our panel is looking at the chat because you are getting some major kudos along the way. We have a very supportive audience. And that includes, folks from different industries. Also, Lauren Smith is a good friend of ours, who is actually sitting in the U.S. Department of Labor. So I think that it's always fun for her and it's always fun for me to actually hear from apprentices, because sometimes you get a little too far away. And so I think this has been lovely. I would love to close this out by asking each of you to give one piece of advice to somebody who might come to you and say, should I embark on a registered apprenticeship like yours? Whoever wants to can start.
Some
Cody, you're
advice.
unmuted, so I think you've decided that we decided that you're going first. So what piece of advice would you give to somebody who's interested or might want to try this?
Wait, was it directed to me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I
Because
mean
I'm
that
sitting
was a
there, and it's
question for
like there's all
everybody.
this
That's
jazz
the
going
final
on
question
around
for
me.
everybody.
So the advice I would give to somebody for like an apprenticeship, it would be obviously to further develop themselves, right? You develop a routine. It sets a routine, keeps you, on regulated. It keeps, obviously it sharpens your skills for whatever trade or whatever you're doing. Um, and obviously, you're getting paid to learn, right? So that's a big plus. So because I've had a lot of I actually got several kids that I've talked to about apprenticeship, and I think because you got to have sponsors for them. So I think we're going to be doing that here in the future for them. And but it's huge. I mean, it's huge opportunity, right? Especially for a company to support you financially. Yeah, because if you were to go out and do it on your own or to go to full-time college, that's not cheap, right? So take advantage of it when you can, and then appreciate it too. So that's another big one too. It's like I can't. It's awesome what they're doing for me, right? And it's like obviously I don't plan on ever leaving this trade. I like this trade and I love this trade, and I want other people to feel the enthusiasm as I do, because there's a lot of neat things that can be done. And I don't think in your career that you can, like, I barely scratched the surface, and I've done this for quite a while. So yeah, there I go. Yep. So that's,
Yeah,
yeah.
that is
So
excellent
rambling.
advice. I think that's really, really great.
A lot.
Thank you. Mandy, what advice would you give?
Yeah, I would say that if it's a curiosity, it's always worth exploring. That it's always worth checking in, with your goals and seeing what supports are available to you. I think that what makes apprenticeship especially valuable is that it helps to instill confidence, expands your professional networks, it creates a lot of sustainable supports for you. And so truly it helps to move beyond just technical learning and into a foundation, I think, for sustainable career development and learning. And if that is something that sounds interesting, then yes, then you should certainly look into it, certainly check it out. And it might be a great fit for you.
Great. And Emily, you got the last word in 10 seconds or less. What
Sure.
is your advice?
I would say
I'm
my
sorry.
advice is for anyone considering it is to remember and reconnect with your strengths and your resources and relationships. I think a lot of the times when you're going back to school, it can be a really intimidating endeavor. But I think one thing I've heard a lot from our apprentices is that leaning into their supportive relationships with their families and their coworkers who may or may not also be apprentices. Reaching out early to develop relationships with advisors at colleges and universities, all of those things can be really helpful not only for getting into apprenticeship, but staying and maybe returning to get additional credentials and degrees in the future. So you're not always starting from square one. A lot of people come to this work with existing talents and strengths and people who are in their corner. So I hope everyone considering remembers that.
Appreciate that, Emily. So I just want to wish everybody a happy National Apprenticeship Week. And I'd love for everybody to thank our wonderful and surprising panelists, Mandy, Cody, and Emily subbing in and doing a great job for Morgan. Please let Morgan know that we missed her and that we'll think about her for another time because she is a really good story too. So thank you, everybody. Hope everybody has a great rest of the week, and we'll see you later. Bye.